So we had started talking about this last time, that arrogance can manifest itself in different ways. There's arrogance in the heart and there's external arrogance. Part of external arrogance is like the way that we walk, the way that we carry ourselves, the way that we present ourselves, and that's something that's really important for us to understand. And then there's arrogance in the heart. Now, Imam Ghazali, he talks about acting arrogant because that is the easiest step to actually work on. So if I walk in an arrogant way, or if I present in an arrogant way, or I speak in an arrogant way, it becomes really easy to actually quell a lot of those actions, even though these don't necessitate each other. So, and the example that we had used is the hadith of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where he said, "Man jarra thawbahu khuyala fala yanzuru Allahu ilayh," that whoever drags his garment out of arrogance, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not look at him, meaning that he's not pleased with him. And the person who actually responded to that was Abu Bakr radiallahu anh. And he said, "Ya Rasulullah, I drag my garment," meaning that one side of my garment actually drags. And the Prophet ﷺ, he responded to him, he said, "You don't do it out of arrogance." So dragging a garment can be a sign of arrogance, but is it a necessary part of arrogance? No, it's not. And there are actions that can be linked to and be expressive of what is happening in the heart, but they don't necessitate each other. This is just like a majority case. It's important for us to keep in mind how we present ourselves. It's important for us to keep in mind that how we speak, how we carry ourselves, how we walk. But it's not something that necessitates the other. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَلَا تَمْشِي فِي الْأَرْضِ مَرَحًا. Don't walk pridefully, don't walk boastfully. And if we understand that that is the case and that is the situation, it actually has an effect on the internal, right? So there is definite overlap in these. Like I said, one doesn't necessitate the other. If I have arrogance in my heart, if I think I'm better than other people, does that always have to manifest? Right? It's not necessary. And if somebody walks very boastfully or proud, does that mean that that person is actually arrogant? Right? No. So these things don't necessitate each other, but it's important to kind of be aware of them, because there's a high possibility that that is the case, and we should do the best that we can to lessen those reasonings. So arrogance in general, it involves two parties, right? There has to be the person who's arrogant and a person who actually receives that arrogance. And someone might be like, well, can't you just be alone and be arrogant by yourself? That's not called arrogance, that's called ujub. Ujub is closer to like vanity. So a lot of times, like if I just spend a lot of time like looking in the mirror and admiring myself, I'm like, man, how amazing am I? And like, how wonderful am I? That is ujub, right? And it has a relationship to arrogance, but these are two separate things, and there is overlap in them. Self-admiration doesn't, like we said, it doesn't require another party. Ujub, or this idea, this vanity, it's not something that is necessary to have somebody who is a recipient of that idea of vanity. Versus arrogance. Arrogance has to have two people, right? Because you always have to have that comparison. Does that make sense? Right? There always has to be something to compare to, and there always has to be someone to look down upon. Any questions on this? No. So this idea brings us into this concept of pride. Is it okay for me to be proud of my accomplishments? Is it okay for me to be proud of my family? Is it okay for me to be proud of where I'm from, or the way that I speak, or maybe the way that I present myself? And what makes that difference from what makes that different from arrogance? Because I'm not comparing it to someone else. Okay, how is this not vanity? Remember we talked about self-admiration and ujub before? Okay, so that takes it out of the realm of arrogance. I agree with you. But we had said that there's a second problem, which is this idea of vanity and loving myself, right? So how come this doesn't fall into that? He's like, yes, you can take my picture, but I'm going to keep hiding my face. How come it doesn't fall into that? Yes. Remember, vanity can happen alone. It doesn't need a second party. Usually when we talk about pride, like being proud of accomplishments, does it have to do with, it's more about the accomplishment and what's done? Does that make sense? right? It's more of an external thing that I'm proud of. And sometimes I have control over those things. If I put hard work and dedication and I try and I win a race, for example, will I be proud of that accomplishment? Now, can that lead to me thinking that I'm better than other people? Yeah, it can. So this is not wrong, but it can be very dangerous. Does that make sense? Right? It's a slippery slope. Not in the sense that, oh, I should never be proud of my accomplishments. Right? That's not good either, because what does that lead to? So that's the other extreme. Sabotage. Like, I spend all this time, I train, I try to get faster, I'm doing all this, and I enter the race. I'm sorry? You can have a really negative person, right? So if I'm never proud of my accomplishments, okay, well, what is the opposite of that? Always being disappointed with myself and my accomplishments. It's like, oh man, you did so well, like you won the race. It's like, yeah, but I could have been faster. Right? Right? And it's just like, it really creates that negative mindset. And that's not the way that we should view each other either. Someone might be like, okay, well, shouldn't we set high standards and shouldn't we create goals and yeah, absolutely, we should do all of those things. But I shouldn't bring that negativity back on myself. Lower your expectation, raise your standards. SubhanAllah, I actually had a really good question around that. They're like, okay, well, how do you do that? How do you actually do that? And I think lowering expectations is easy. Right? And what does that mean is like, okay, I don't expect this person to do X for me. Right? That's pretty straightforward. Like, how do I raise my standards? Or how do I raise standards of others around me? Because you might be like, oh, if I don't expect anything from anyone, then, why would people give? Or why would people give rides? Or why would people make dua? Why would they do those things? Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure. I mean, those are expectations. I agree with that. But how do we raise our standards? You just do it. Yeah. How do I raise my standards? I lock in, right? Okay, that's important. I agree with that. Right? No one's saying don't do those things. No, it's fine. I haven't given the answer before. Even if you're cheating, I'm fine with that. I expect Batul to cheat. By creating pathways of success.
Oh yeah, you said this last time.
Yeah. All right. Now the thing is, now if I want to do that for my community, how does that play out?
You host your classes.
I host my classes. Okay, good. No, now you're cheating. But like it's okay. So I host my class, and then what?
You don't expect people.
I don't expect people to come. Right? So if people come or they don't come, it's okay. Why? Because I have to make sure that I am creating that pathway. So what do I do then? Right? I had given that example before. Like, what do I do at that point? So now I have this class. People don't come. I'm like, it's okay, right? If people come, they don't. What options do I have in front of me?
Am I allowed to answer?
Yeah, sure. It's like you're gonna sit there and you're gonna be like, would you like the second answer or the third one? Huh?
I said to remember last night to record it.
Okay, I can record it. Absolutely. That's 100% right. Because if I record it, I can always use it later in a different space and a different audience. What else can I do? I'm sorry? Right? And that's something that's really important, right? Have nicer slides, right? Right? So, right? So use Canva, subhanAllah. Slides go, right? So you have a lot of these options. It's like, okay, tayyib, I can use it as a growth opportunity for myself, because even if others aren't utilizing it, I can still make it a means. It's like, okay, listen, this is part of my craft. How do I make it better? How do I improve on it? And there's always going to be room to improve. And I look for those reasons and those rooms for improvement. Why? I'm sorry? Because I want to change the outcome. Absolutely. What else? It's a sign of humility for myself, right? To show that there's always room to improve. I'm never going to do something perfectly, right? I can't, because perfection is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not for us. We have to make those constant efforts. Like, we have to keep pushing. We have to keep growing. We have to learn to change our strategies, because when we learn to pivot and when we learn to change, what does that reflect about me as an individual, as a person? Like, if I'm not fixed, like, I have to do it this way, I have to serve it in this way, I have to present it this way, what does that say about me and my heart? It has a lot to do with what we're talking about. I'm sorry? It's actually a sign of humility, right? Because if I'm not fixated on doing something in a particular way, in a particular space, with a particular person, it shows that I'm ready to change, it shows that I'm ready to grow, and that the right way isn't necessarily my way. And that's hard, right? That's difficult, because I think like, no, this is the way of success. Another way that we trick ourselves is like, well, I've been doing it this long, or I've been doing it this way for so many years, or this is the way that I've been doing it before. Why should I change? What's the problem with stagnation? I'm sorry? Well, it doesn't bring change. That's for sure. What is the problem with stagnation? Because someone might be like, okay, well, this is the formula I've been using and it's been working. Because because world changed, right? And I have to learn how to adapt. And again, this is very reflective of myself. It's very reflective of my heart. Because a lot of times we want things to work because we're invested in them, right? Like, I really want this to work. I want this relationship to work. I want this job to work. I want this career to work. I want that to work. Why? Because I'm so invested. Well, the question I need to ask is like, okay, is this person as invested in me? Is this institution as invested as me? Right? Relationships have to be two ways. Do they have to be 50-50? No, absolutely not. Both parties just need to be happy with the contribution. That's it. That's all that matters. And that contribution can be 90-10, it could be 10-90, it doesn't matter. But both have to be contributing, and both have to be happy with the contribution to whatever that relationship looks like. Make sense? And that recognition, it all comes back to this, right? It all stems from this idea of humility, this ability to change, this ability to pivot, this ability to, like just kind of shift the way that I think about things and how I think about others, and even how I think about myself.
How do you bring arrogance to life as someone that's older than you, like in a respectful way?
You don't?
Oh, great.
Yeah. No, why not?
Because it's not my job question.
Yeah.
But then what if it's like affecting you?
So then what do you do in that situation? So these are very good questions. So for example, I have someone in front of me, super arrogant. And every time I engage with them, like, why are you so stupid? Why are you do it like this? Or how come this isn't the situation? Oh, I knew that was going to happen. Yes? How many of us have dealt with like a toxic personality in that way? And you're like, oh man, this person is so arrogant. Yes? What do I do? No, you'll be like, these are so ugly. Why didn't you have them? Huh? Oh, what do I do? Right. So that's one pathway, right? One pathway is like, okay, you know what? I need to change the nature of this relationship, and that's completely reasonable. Well, so I can go from friend to non-friend. I agree with you, but I can't go from mother to not mother, right? That can't happen. So we have to understand, number one, the type of relationship. So if it's a voluntary relationship, I can remove myself, right? That's an easy thing. But what if I'm invested in this person? Is there something I can do before changing that relationship? I can talk to them. So what is the best way for me to approach someone now who's suffering from arrogance? I can be like, you're really arrogant, and I really want you to change. How's that going to go over? It's like, I'm not arrogant, you're arrogant. So what do I do? Can you tell someone they're arrogant?
No.
Why not?
Because they're not going to remember. They probably don't even know who they are.
That's fine. But I think a lot of it has to do with the approach and how we deal with people, right? Because if a person feels that, what is the easiest way to get access to someone who feels they're higher and they're better than you? Humble them. Yeah. What do I do? If someone thinks they're higher and they're better than me, what is one way for me to play into that? I'm sorry? You ask permission, right?
Permission for what?
Can I talk to you? I mean, you have to word things in a way. It's like, if I have someone who feels they're higher or they're better than me, the easiest way to engage that is for someone who thinks that they're better, can I just approach them and start talking to them? No. Right? Because they're not ready and you're not worthy, right? But the moment that I come up to them and I'm like, hey, listen, there's been something that's really bothering me. I was wondering when we can sit down and have a conversation. Is it necessary the conversation is going to go over well? No, but that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to give the relationship a chance. Yes? So I say, hey, listen, there are some things that have been bothering me, right? Because I'm making it about me. We're not attacking the other person. Because remember, the arrogant person, the moment you attack them, what happens? Right, they get defensive, right? Because they see themselves in this particular light, in this particular aura. They're not going to accept what anybody else has to say about them. So when I make it about me, it becomes easy for them to dismiss it and be like, oh, this is how they perceive me. This is how they see me. Does that make sense? So I go up to them and I'll be like, okay, hey, listen, I want to talk. When is a good, and then I'm asking them permission for their time because they feel their time is more important than my time anyway. Right? So the moment that they do that, they'll be like, okay, well, yeah, I'll be free at like Tuesday around 2. I can respond because it might not be convenient for me. I'll be like, okay, hey, listen, I don't know if that's going to work for me. How about like, you know what I mean? And then you kind of negotiate a time at that point. Like, now I sit down. The meeting is there. What do I do? Okay, absolutely. Hey, every time you talk to me, I feel like you're putting me down. You use insulting language. You use this and you can kind of open up the conversation in that way. Is the person going to be happy? No. But that's not, again, remember, that's not what we're there for. We're not here to make people happy. Why is that? Is my job to make you happy? No. My job is to respect you, but I'm not here to make you happy. My job is to make Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala happy. That's what's important. And as for my happiness and your happiness, I control my own happiness. I decide the things that make me happy. I can't decide that for you. You have to make your own decision for that. So I'm sitting down, I explain this. Now, is there a chance that the other person won't understand? Right? There's a good chance. At that point, now I have a choice. Now, if it's a voluntary relationship, what can I do? Like you had mentioned, I can change that relationship. Be like, okay, hey, listen, we just went from friend to acquaintance. Or we went from friend to not friends. Right? I don't want anything to do with you. Okay, this is a permanent relationship. It's a blood relationship. Father, mother, whatever. What do I do now? Because I know that they don't respect me. What do I try to do? So I can limit my interactions with them. Because remember, I can't change the relationship, but I can change the frequency. Does that make sense? I don't have to engage with them and interact with them the same way that I was engaging and interacting before. Because a lot of times I was engaging and interacting because it's like, oh, I want her to understand. I want him to understand. How come he doesn't get? No. Like, how come he's insistent that it needs to be done like this? And I'm going to keep fighting for it to be done my way. In the end, what's going to happen? It's going to be the way that he wants it or the way that she wants it. Did I win anything? No. I spent all of this energy thinking in my head that something is going to be different or something is going to change. And we keep trying that again and again and again. That's not a sign of humility. I'm trying to beat his arrogance with my own. Why? My expectation is that he should understand. Do you guys see what happened? So I'm going to do it like this because she's supposed to understand. Why? What magical thing is in my fingers or in my speech that that person should change? And if anyone should have had this ability to change on a whim, if anyone had this ability to change with a talk or something sweet, it should have been Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And even he sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not given that ability. So how does it make sense that I feel I have the power, that this is what we call like a hero complex. Like, I can change it. I can do it. Why? Only Allah does everything. I can facilitate, I can show, I can speak, I can try different things, but I can't force that change. And it's amazing how it can become a very, it's like a very easy tool to go to, that when I deal with arrogance, I'm going to try to match it with my own. And has the relationship improved at all? No. If anything, it's going to get worse. So I've tried presenting, I've tried speaking. I can decrease the frequency of interaction. That's one tool. What other tools do I have available to me? Okay, but if that person looks down on me, are they going to care what examples that I set? We should be good. Why? For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I should be respectful for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Regardless of how people are dealing with me or treating me, my job is to define those boundaries. Right? I have to be very firm in those boundaries. And that can be in that frequency of interaction. So if I know that my mom doesn't respect me, what can I do at that point? I've tried talking to her. She's just ignoring me. I can decrease the frequency. That's helped put my heart at ease because I don't have to deal with the abuse as often. What else can I do? I bring in a third party. Now, the third party is a bit tricky. And I will never say no, right? I think 99% of the time it's a good idea as long as it's the right person. But some responses that we'll get from people who are arrogant is like, why are you airing out our family business? I mean, I'm sure you've heard of this before. The other thing I've also heard is like, well, why did you bring this person in? This is something that should stay in the family. Like, you can't win. Whether it's a family member or it's not a family member, you're not going to win. It's like, oh, this is something that should have stayed in the family. Oh, well, why'd you tell? Now everybody in the family is going to talk, right? It doesn't matter. There's always going to be some kind of excuse. But it's like, okay, well, I brought in a third party because, why? You weren't listening to me. I was trying to have a conversation with you and you just weren't allowing the conversation. So I thought maybe you would listen to this person. So I think understanding the frequency of interactions, that's something that's really important. Bringing in a third party is something that's really important. Like, what's more important than all of these? Well, dua, for sure. I agree with that, 100%. Other than dua, what can I do? I have to change my mindset, right?
What if, like, you know that person's mindset is what's causing them harm? Like, they're like stuck in the, oh, we've always done it this way.
Sure.
But it doesn't work anymore.
So did they exist and navigate their life before your presence?
Yes. But
I want you to think about that one.
no, but it's like, then it was working and now it's not working.
Okay.
But then what if it's partly you too?
Like I said, third party, frequency, dua, then you have to try something else. Maybe it's not the right person who you brought in, right? So if you brought in a third party and that didn't work, okay, you know what? Maybe I need to look to another third party. It's like, oh, I tried my uncle. It's like, okay, well, maybe he wasn't the right person. I don't, so the thing is, I don't know. And if someone might be like, oh, I've tried a lot of third parties, it's like, okay, well, were they the same type of person? Was it from the same pool of people? You understand? I think that, because it's like, all right, well, what I'm doing is I'm bringing a different person, but it's the same type who's going to give the same advice and speak in the same way. Or it might be from a pool of people that parent or that uncle or the grandparent doesn't respect Aslan. Something to think about. The way that we engage, the way that we interact, right? That's something that's really important too. If my parents are mad at me because I delay doing my chores, okay, check it off the list. Do the chores as soon as they ask, right? Doesn't it make more sense that I invest the 5 minutes now instead of the next 3 hours arguing? Just get it done. And not just, am I losing anything? Is it making me any less? And if there's a certain cultural expectation, my thing is, there's a spectrum of people are like, oh, like, don't we have to obey our parents? No, we have to be kind to our parents, right? There's a difference between, I have to obey Allah, I have to obey His messenger, I have to be kind to my parents. Right? These are two different things. Because blind obedience is only to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when it comes to parents, it's like, okay, well, how much do I listen to my parents? The more financially dependent I am on them, the more I have to listen to them. So if I'm like 3 years old, can the 3-year-old have full independence from his parents? Okay, but now my child is 10. Can they choose whatever toys that they want to play with? Right? So and as a parent, I give them certain access, right? So it's like, okay, hey, listen, you can play with any of these tools, and he's going for the knife. What am I going to do as a parent? All right, I'm going to stop him. Hopefully. Right? I'm going to stop them from going to, because I know that is going to hurt them. But now I have a child that's 12, or I have a child that's 16, or I have a child that's 18 or 22. The independence, not just with age, but also with financial independence, it grows. And that room for obedience and disagreement, right? There's disobedience and there's disagreement. I think the disagreements start increasing the more independent we become. Does that help frame the relationship a little bit? Because a lot of times it's like, okay, oh, we need to go here on this day and you need to wear that, for example, right? If I'm 7 years old, how much agency do I have in that decision? 0. And I shouldn't have any agency, right? It doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, I want to wear 2 different shoes, and I want to wear my pajamas, and I want to wear a dress shirt, right? Like, and like a 7-year-old, they're just going to wear whatever it is that they want. I don't want to give my child that agency at that age, and the child has no right to demand it. Okay, like, what do I say to the 12-year-old? I can say, okay, you don't want to wear that? You can choose from this frame of clothing. Because I don't want you dressed I want you to dress in a presentable way. Do they have a choice on whether they can go with me or not? No, they're too young. I can't leave them alone. My child's now 16. Can I force them to go with me? Does the child have a choice in saying no? It depends, sure. But in general, usually at 16, a child is independent enough where they can. They could probably warm up their own food, right? You don't have to worry about, if there's an emergency, they know who to call and how to use a phone, right? So I think there's a level of independence that's definitely there. But do you see the progression and kind of how that works? I think a lot of times parents will look at us as if we're in the 7-year-old category for the rest of our lives, right? And for us, we want the full independence as children. But we have to understand that there is a progression that's there, and we have to respect that. If I'm living under my parents' home and they want me home at a reasonable time, I have no right to keep coming home late. One-off, like, we all make mistakes. But if I'm living in my parents' home, they're paying for my food, they're paying for my clothing, they're paying for my internet, they're paying for all of these things, and my parents are like, hey, listen, you need to be home by 10 p.m., and I'm consistently coming home at 10:30, 11, 12. That's a problem. Or that's an issue. Because I'm still dependent on them. And as long as I'm dependent on them, there are certain rules I have to and I must follow, regardless of how much I like them or I dislike them. Because if I want that choice and I want that freedom, okay, with freedom comes responsibility. It's like, okay, hey, listen, you want more freedom? Then you need to take more responsibility. Now, if it comes to a point, hey, I'm paying half the mortgage, like, please don't tell me when to come home. Right? That's a conversation. Because now there's actually a meaningful contribution that's happening in the home. I'm taking care of the groceries. Like, come on, I get a little bit of say of what we cook and what we don't cook. Like, I don't want to eat this every day. Like, I want to have a little bit more variety. I'll take care of it. Again, how those conversations and how that agency happens, that's something that's important. But it requires humility. It requires us to be humble and to understand what is the situation that I'm actually in. And some of us don't. We're so busy and infatuated with our rights and our freedom and our decisions that we really don't look at the perspective of the parent. Does that help? I say no, but it's okay. Or speak to someone. I think there are certain conversations that can happen with a counselor, that can happen with an imam, to be like, okay, hey, listen, I don't know how to navigate this. Because at the end of the day, I'm limited to my knowledge. I'm limited to my understanding. I'm limited to my experiences. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He commands us to seek counsel. It's like, listen, I just don't know how to deal with this. And if I'm being honest, I've done it a number of times where I'm like, hey, listen, I just don't know how to navigate this relationship. I don't know how to deal with this. Hey, I'm having this problem with my son, or I'm having this problem with my father, or I'm having this issue with my wife, and I'm like, I just don't know where to go from here. So what do? You have to talk to someone. Because if I just stay in my own head, what happens? I'm not bringing any solutions. I can't. Why? If I'm stuck in the hamster wheel, is the hamster going anywhere? I need to get off the wheel and I need to start talking to other people. How come I'm not willing to do that? Why am I not talking to other people? How come I'm not seeking advice? Because I'm arrogant. Because I think I have the solution. Because I think I know. I think I understand. You see how scary this thing is? And how quickly it is to fall into? And all of a sudden, the one place it shows up that we wouldn't even imagine, being the victim. It's such an easy way to become arrogant. I was at a conference the past couple days, and there was a discussion on authoritarianism and what it is and what that looks like. And this one guy goes, he's like, well, from my background, we've dealt with authoritarianism. I was like, what did you do? Just win the victim Olympics? Has your experience just canceled out everybody else's experience? Have what you gone through, how do you even compare that to the difficulties that other people have faced in their lives? And that person, again, he was talking from a point of being an actual victim. Someone who might have experienced oppression, someone who might have experienced violence, someone who might have experienced difficulty. But you're becoming arrogant in your difficulty? You know what I mean? It's like, okay, yes, you know what? You're the best victim in the world. Yeah, and it's a huge victim. The victim complex, this is also a sign of arrogance. Why? Well, he's doing this and she's doing that. And then when I go to this masjid, and then when I go to that store, and when I apply for this job, people don't have time to worry about you. That's just a reality. Why would the world care about me? Is not the world busy in their own things? When we walk away from this class, how many dozens of things do we have in our mind? We have a lot of things. Is anyone here sitting and thinking how do I scheme against Imam Farhan? Who has that time? Right? Nobody has that time. Nobody has that investment. Yeah. They're so, and that's something that it should be a huge red flag for us internally. That meant I'm so worried about other people all the time. And if I'm constantly worried about other people, guess the one person I'm not worried about? Myself. And that is the being that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually commands me to worry about. He says, قُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ وَأَهْلِكُمْ نَارًا. Save yourselves and your family from the hellfire. Don't spend all your time with these other people. Why are you wasting your time? Why are you worried about this? And not just that, what makes you think you can save that person? I have every right to advise. I have every right to have conversation. I have every right to engage. But saving is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not for me.
Is other word, other is first words of Farhan. One word, other one, the people who are worried other people do well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that means worry about other people, not worry about other people. Describe worrying about other people. Worry about people can be the person that I would consider has been well, that I'm worrying about her. Just for example,
Yeah.
Example, not
Sure.
not you.
So you're not worried about her?
Like for example,
Yeah.
that there's friends that
Sure.
You worry about it.
Okay.
Consider about it.
There's a difference between feeling bad for someone,
Yes.
right? Right now, the tragedy that we're seeing in the genocide in Gaza. Can I feel bad about those people? The people, when I'm driving and I see people walking around with signs, asking for food or asking for money. Can I feel bad? Absolutely. Yeah, listen, if I don't feel bad, then I doubt your humanity. Right? There's something wrong in your heart. Right? There's something's not right. But there's a very big difference between worrying about someone and trying to give people direction or control in what it is that they're facing or what they're doing in their own lives. What do I mean by that? A very good example. Not too long ago, you guys remember all the mask rules? Masks. Yeah. We all forgot, right? We all want to forget. One of the conversations that we had in the masjid was like, okay, we need to mandate masks. I said, okay, why? Say, we're responsible for the community. So I said, I disagree. I don't think we're responsible for the community. Why? Exactly. Everyone who attends is responsible for themselves. And what do we mean by that? Is it possible that I care more about this person's safety or this person's health or this person's well-being than they do? No, it's impossible. I can't care about someone more than they care about themselves. Does that make sense? My job is to protect, as an employee, is to protect the institution. That's my job. Why? And someone was like, oh no, well we have to worry about, I was like, are you going to go knock on 20,000 doors and ask if everybody is following all health regulations, is making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do? I said, we don't even do that for salah. Which is, no, I'm saying, listen, we don't do that for salah. We don't do that for prayer, which is the most important action that we have as Muslims. Yes? And if I'm not doing it for that, why would I do it for anything else?
It's like if you always say wear, you put the signs there, everyone wear it, and I'm not willing to wear it.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
I'm saying, I'm okay with having that secondary conversation, but the initial conversation is like, why do we tell people to do it? It's to protect the institution. It's to protect the institution in case somebody says, oh, I got sick because somebody at Al-Hijrah was sick and they didn't do this, they didn't do that. That's it. That's the only reason. It's not because, oh, can a person get sick or can't they not get sick? The moment I step out of my home, what do? I take a risk. Would you all agree? The moment I open my front door and I step out, my chances of getting into an accident increase 1,000,000%. Would you agree? And if I didn't want to get into an accident, what do? I step back in my house and I close my door. But we have to understand that we take risks every time we go out, every space that we enter. And part of the risks that we engage in, that we have to deal with, is that there are going to be people in that space that don't follow the rules. Yes? When I get on the highway, do I trust every single driver on the road? No. I know that there are going to be people who break the rules. When I walk into a Walmart, how do I know that somebody's not going to go crazy? When I walk into different spaces, how do I know that someone's not going to try to hurt me or hurt others? These are risks that we take every single day. Every day, every moment. And what does that mean? It means that I cannot be responsible for other people. I can only be responsible for myself. And that's important. And anybody who thinks that they can be responsible for everyone, it's also arrogance.
What is the difference between the arrogant and tough person? If they say this person is very tough and arrogant, are they close?
Not necessarily. A person can be difficult because of ignorance, right? They don't know any other way. So for example, if the only way I know how to go to Home Depot is from Lee Highway, this is the only way I know how to go to Home Depot, right? I'm set up like this. And you're like, no. We can go down from here. You can go from Arlington Boulevard. I'll be like, no, what are you talking about? You can only go from here. Am I being difficult? Yes, I'm being difficult because there's an easier way from here. Why? Because I've limited myself to that, and some of it can be because of comfort, some of it can be because of ignorance, blah blah blah. But the opposite of that is being humble. And if someone said like, no, you can actually go to Home Depot from Arlington Boulevard, I'd be like, really? No, I'd say, really? How is that? And I can start asking questions. I don't need to go that way, but I can start asking questions. I can start engaging. But again, that requires a little bit of humility. So for somebody to be difficult, somebody can be difficult out of fear too, because they don't know anything else. How many people, like, they'll walk into a space and someone will serve them food, and because they don't recognize the food, they're like, I'm not gonna eat it. Yes? Does it happen? Are they doing it because like, oh, I'm better than this food, and this food is, why are they doing that? Because they're scared. Like, I don't know what's in it, I don't know how they cooked it. Right, no, it's fear. So I'm saying, like, I think ignorance, I think fear, I think all of those can be reasons too for people to be difficult, not just arrogance. Can a person be difficult out of arrogance? Yes, 100%. Right, that's a very real possibility, but I'm saying it can also be out of fear and it can also be out of ignorance. This is why sometimes when we deal with people that we don't know or we're not familiar with, how do we act? We're very reserved, right? Like we're very reserved, like we might not want to engage, like we don't know what's going on. And I think that fear is very natural, but part of being humble is learning to overcome those fears.
Like Friday, sometimes on Friday after one lady or one or two ladies bring the children in, and the whole place already wants to concentrate.
Yeah.
And another lady trying to say, you have to take the kids out, they have no food. No, she cannot stay. And I later on I said, which one is most important? The kids can sit here, or will she until one time, please, there is a kids in this place, and all the people there. And I will tell one time, and they insist to stay. And then like all they repeat, I'm going to lose my book. No. There's no one, no children allowed here. No. I got it. But if they come and sit there, there's nothing I can do. I cannot lose my book. I have to listen to my book. Then this person insists you have to take the person out.
So I'm saying, so but the thing is, you have people insistent for all kinds of different things. Again, this person might be operating from a place of fear or from ignorance, or it could also be arrogance. Oh, I need to get, well, Akhi, you can't park here. Oh, I need to go to the Jummah. I need to go to Jummah. I need to go to Salah. Or like moving people out of the way. Or this is my prayer space. Or, oh, you need to get these kids out of here. All those things can stem from arrogance. They can. I'm not doubting that. I remember I had an older gentleman, he said to me one time, he's like, oh, I'm trying to read Quran and all these kids are running around. I was like, try harder. And he got upset. And I was like, listen, Akhi, the masjid is a public space. It's not mine, it's not yours. We have to learn to navigate it. I said, were they yelling and screaming like during Salah, during Maghrib? He's like, no. I was like, okay, I'm sorry, that's the most I can do. Like during the prayer, you have every right to demand silence. I agree with that 100%. That during the obligatory prayer, you have every right to demand silence. Outside of that, the only thing I can demand for the space is what? Respect. During class, sure. During class, but the thing is, during class, I'm also asking for respect. Remember, I can't demand silence because, again, it's a public space. I can ask them to leave. I can ask them to do that. But at that point, part of coming to the masjid and having a space like that is learning how to navigate relationships with each other, right? That's the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He puts us in these closed spaces. He's like, okay, listen, this person is going to do something you don't like, even though they might not be doing anything wrong, right? All right, how do I navigate that? What do I do? So I have a choice. I can talk to this person, and I can be like, hey, listen, your kid's making a lot of noise, and I'm trying to listen to the class, and that happens. And the mother's like, I don't care. My kids are playing. Let them play. Why are they having a class right now anyway? And that happens, right? So you have different levels of engagement, and you have different levels of tolerance for people. Some people are not tolerant. So some people you can leave them, and some people you can't. I think there are certain situations that require you to, you can call in somebody who works at the masjid. I think that's important. Because at the end of the day, anybody who says something to me in the masjid, the easiest way to disarm them and the easiest way to get them away from me is to do what? I'd be like, oh brother, you know, your prayers like this and blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, do you work here? That's it, right? That's actually the easiest way to disarm anybody in a masjid. Do you work here? No. Then why are you talking to me? Right? And it can come across as very rude, but it really depends. It really depends on the energy the person is coming at you with. Right? If someone came up to me and was like, excuse me, akhi, you know, can I talk to you for a minute? I saw you doing this, this, and this. How am I going to be, is it going to be easier for me to accept? But if someone comes to me and be like, akhi, what you did was da-da-da-da-da-da-da, am I going to accept that? No. I might try to push back and be like, is there something you're asking? Are you trying to engage with me? Are you trying, you know, what is it that you're trying to, and this happened to me one time. I remember I had just finished prayer, and this man comes up to me, and he was like, I was wearing ankle socks, and he was like, you can't wipe over those socks. I was like, okay, jazakallah khair. And then he's like, no, you know, you can't, blah, blah. I was like, listen, akhi, there's a difference of opinion, and if you look at the Hanbalis and the Lahiris, this is how they define socks, and this is that, you know, and like I started getting into it. I started getting into it, and then he was like, yeah, but you know, you can't wipe over them, and I was like, okay. And he was like, he tried to go again. I said, jazakallah khair. That's it, right? And we have to learn how to draw lines and interact with other people, right? Like you're in a public space. And if I understand it's a public space, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's amazing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what does he say about the masajid? He says, Anna masajid lillah. He said that the masajid are for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning it's not for who? It's not for me. It's not for you. It's not for him. It's not for her. Nobody has ownership over this space. And if I understand that no individual owns this space, that means that I can what? As long as I'm being respectful, what can I do? I can stay and I can still come. Nobody has a right to stop me. Now, if I'm being disrespectful, what are the ways of being disrespectful? If there are public rules to a masjid and I don't follow those rules, what happens? I can be removed, right? And I have people who, they try to threaten you. They say, you're removing me from the house of Allah? And sometimes be like, yeah, I am. Like, that's exactly what we're doing. If we asked you to respect the space, we asked you to respect the rules, you're refusing to do either, like, yes, you have to go. You're being disruptive. And the problem is, like, people don't want to have, like, those are very uncomfortable conversations, but the only way to draw boundaries with people who refuse to listen is by being very clear with the rules and being consistent in enforcing them. If this person is yelling and I let them in, and this person is yelling and I don't, what happens? I'm saying both of them are yelling, and I'm like, okay, you need to leave, you can't come back, and this person, I let him in. Right? So other people, they see this, and there's like, oh man, there's preferential treatment. And the moment that we see preferential treatment as human beings, be like, oh, okay, if he can get away with it, I can too. And the other problem is if you don't have clear rules. An example of this is there was a Bedouin man who walked into the Masjid al-Nabawi. He went into a corner, and what did he do? He relieved himself, right? He urinated. All the other companions, what were they about to do? Yo, they're about to go jump on this dude, right? They were jumping up. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, Al-Rislikum. He's like, hey, listen, calm down. Calm down, let him finish. Why did the Prophet ﷺ allow it? There's multiple reasons. One of them is like, obviously, if they stopped him in midstream, what would happen? Right, there'd just be urine everywhere. It would cause a bigger problem. It'd get on his clothes, it'd get on other things. So that's one very clear wisdom. What is the other reason? What was there a sign on Masjid al-Nabawi that said no urinating? No. Meaning that the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw him, he knew he was doing it out of what? He was doing it out of ignorance. And he wasn't trying to be what? Disrespectful. The only time that we stop people is when they're knowingly being disrespectful. And how do you know that? Whatever cultural values are. An example, if a man just walked in with swimming shorts only, would we allow him into the masjid? If a man, swimming shorts, he's wearing short shorts, he walks in, or just underwear, and he walks into the masjid, Would we be like, no, no, we have to be tolerant, please let the brother in? Would we allow that? Why? The awra, we can have that conversation, but he might not understand that. What is the reason that we don't allow that person? Because it might not be a Muslim. Okay, well, one thing, the rules could be clear. Hey, listen, man, if you're dressed inappropriately, you'll be removed. The other thing is, even within American society, is there a decorum and a dress of walking into places of worship? Well, any place for sure, especially places of worship. Right, you're knowingly walking into a masjid like that. There's only one of two problems. Either the person has a mental health issue, right, which is possible, or the second, he's knowingly being disrespectful. At that point, you're going to be excused, be like, I'm sorry, akhi, you're going to have to go. This is unacceptable. This won't be tolerated. So I think that those things are important to keep in mind. That when there's open disrespect, and the thing is with the Arabs, they knew what was disrespectful for places of worship and what wasn't. For him, that wasn't disrespectful. And the reason I know they know how to be disrespectful, do you guys know why Abraha took his army into Mecca? He tried to build his own Kaaba. He tried to build his own Kaaba. So one of the Arabs, from the Arab tribes, they went to the Kaaba of Abraha, right, this place of worship, and they defecated right on the door. Why did he do that? Because he wanted to disrespect him. So the Arabs knew what disrespect was and how to be disrespectful. And the Prophet ﷺ, this is why he didn't stop the man who was urinating. He's like, yo, listen, he hid himself. He went into a corner. He's used to seeing buildings, and this is how he would relieve himself. He's not trying to be disrespectful. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ dealt with him the way that he did. Right? These things are important to keep in mind, like how to honor these places. Like, okay, I have to be respectful when I walk into these places. And after the Prophet ﷺ, he sat him down. He's like, listen, this is a masjid. We don't do that here. Right? It's not appropriate. This place is for prayer. It's a place for dhikr. It's a place for, for all of these things, but it's not a place for that. So helping people understand those boundaries, right? That's something that's really important. And sometimes we don't share those boundaries, and then when people break them, we get upset. Is that being fair to the other person? If someone brings me a pineapple pizza and I hate pineapple, can I get mad at the person who's like, oh, I don't like pineapple. What is wrong with you? Why would you bring? Why? Because I never communicated it. Remember, transparency and consistency. I have to be very clear in the things that I like. I have to be very clear in the things I don't like. And then if people knowingly take advantage of that, then I know this person is not trying to respect me. But we'll stop there, and we'll talk about true arrogance next time, inshallah. Allahu a'lam wa sallallahu ala khairi khalqin, nabiyina Muhammad.